Hey guys, this video is going to be a little bit different than usual. I'm going to be addressing some of the comments from my previous video talking about where we need new interstates in the US. And this is not something I've done before, and I'm not going to make a habit out of it, but I do want to clarify some of the things in that video because there was quite a bit of negative feedback. And I'll leave a link to that video in the description and also a little thing up there if you want to check it out. But most of the negative feedback centered around how I may be pro-car but anti-rail, which certainly isn't the case. So I do want to go over some of the negative feedback I saw in the comments from that video. So I'm going to show some of the negative comments from the previous video, and I do want to say that I think the viewers of this channel are a little more classy and intellectual than viewers of some similar channels. So when I read some of these negative comments, at least thank you for being polite. So the main thing I want to do here is differentiate between intra-city and intercity transit. The biggest argument against widening freeways and increasing lane capacity in major cities is something called induced demand. So what this is say a freeway is 4 lanes in each direction and it's bumper to bumper every morning and afternoon during rush hours. And so certain people aren't going to be using that freeway because it's already backed up, might as well just use the surface streets. But then the state comes along and widens it to 6 lanes on each side. So now some of these people that are using the side streets are like, oh wow, now I can use the interstate. It's moving a lot better. But of course what happened is more people are now willing to use the freeways and they get to the point where they're just as congested as they were before. So widening freeways within a large metro doesn't really make anything better and can actually make things worse. So in the case of big cities and large metros, I do not advocate for widening freeways and building more interstates. I think the idea in large cities and urban areas is to get people out of cars, more buses, more light rail, more public transit, more pedestrian infrastructure. And the urbanist side of me sees the need for all this stuff. When I go to a city, I don't want to drive around and look for parking myself. I want to walk around, hop on a bus, or hop on a train. But I think it's really important to differentiate between transit in the city and transit between cities. Many of these roads that I was advocating being turned into an interstate are already 4-lane divided highways. They already have a big shoulder. They're already essentially as wide as an interstate. They just have a lot of cross traffic and stoplights as they go through towns. And the other ones I mentioned were smaller 2-lane highways where the population growth on either end of it has grown so much to where more and more people are using that corridor. So in the case of making a 2-lane country highway a 4-lane road to make it safer and faster to get between 2 points, this isn't really inducing demand. So say, for example, mom and dad want to take the kids to Rolla, Missouri to visit grandma. They're not going to say, well, guys, the road's only a 2-lane highway. It goes really slow. Last time we did it, there was a crazy person trying to pass people on the windy section, so we're not going to go see grandma this year. But then say maybe the state widens it to 4 lanes. All right, kids, we can go to visit grandma now. We can get there faster and the road's going to be safer. So of course, that's not going to be what happens. People are going to take the drive to grandma's house anyway. It's just they're going to go on a slower road and perhaps have to go through a dangerous situation to get there. And it's also important to point out that there are many places in this country that will never be served by high-speed rail. There are plenty of small towns out kind of on their own, places behind some weird topography, and just other areas where it wouldn't be feasible to have high-speed rail or really any rail. But nonetheless, there are plenty of people that live in these areas, and it's really easy for some of us who live in cities or are more urban-oriented to only see the needs of people that live in these cities for public transit and high-speed rail, which I'm all in support of. But when you get out to some of these country areas, there's not going to be a high-speed rail network going through a town of 5,000 to get to another town of 20,000 2 hours away. And something else worth pointing out is that even as we go into the future and things are becoming more electric and autonomous, we're still going to need the interstate road network. My opinion on the future of personal travel in the US is going to be electric and autonomous private vehicles on the current interstate network. So say I want to go to Atlanta for the day to do some shopping. It's about a 2-hour drive from here normally. So we'll just go into our garage, sit down, say, hey car, take us to whatever store, and we're just hanging out while the car is going down the freeway, which is also a charging pad. In terms of moving freight, I think a big part of the future is going to be electric and autonomous big rigs on the current interstate network. And if the technology of the road itself being the charging pad, I think electric and autonomous big rigs on the interstates is kind of like moving freight with rail. I'm a big supporter of rail, but I don't think any one mode of transportation is going to meet all of our transport needs. And of course, there's a bit of a pipe dream aspect to my previous video in terms of what, hey, I just found $3 billion, let's fix some roads. So things like financing and getting things approved through the legislative process can be a pain, but in terms of just the actual need for the improved traffic corridor, I think we do need it. But that's mainly what I wanted to highlight here, is the difference between transportation within a city, within a metro, and between cities and between metros. But anyway, those are the things I wanted to clarify. I'm definitely pro-rail, not anti-public transit. But anyways, guys, hope this clarifies some things from the previous video. And yeah, Geography King signing out. I'd like to give a special thanks to my superior patrons for their support. If you're interested in supporting the channel or to purchase a pin for the viewer pin map, check out my Patreon page, link in the description. And as always, thank you very much.